You know, it's pretty wild when you think about it. We spend about a third of our entire lives in these worlds that our own minds create from scratch, and yet we barely understand why. Welcome to The Explainer, where tonight we are diving deep into that very mystery. Why do we dream?
Have you ever woken up from a dream that was so vivid, or maybe just so bizarre, that you just lay there thinking, where on earth did that come from? Well, you are definitely not alone. Every single night, your brain cooks up an entire movie, and you're the star, the director, and the audience all at the same time. But why?
This question has captivated humanity for, well, forever. Are dreams some kind of message from another dimension, a secret window into our subconscious? Or is it all just random noise from our brain? Today, we're going to trace the incredible journey we've taken to find the answer.
Okay, so let's start our journey by traveling way, way back in time, to a world where dreams weren't even considered your own creation. Nope, they were seen as something else entirely.
For ancient civilizations, the dream world was basically a bridge to the supernatural. This was a place where you could get absolutely crucial information. We're talking about gods warning kings about wars, guiding prophets, or even telling a doctor how to cure a patient, all through the theater of the mind.
In fact, people believed in this so strongly that they would literally travel to special temples, like these Asclepians in ancient Greece. They'd go through these purification rituals and then sleep in a sacred space, all in the hopes that the god of medicine, Asclepius, would show up in their dreams and give them a cure.
But hey, it wasn't just about passively waiting for a message to arrive. You had professional interpreters, like this guy Artemidorus, who developed these really complex systems to decode all these divine symbols. He was all about finding similarities. You know, if you dream about a fox, what in your waking life is sly and cunning like a fox? He was building a real science of dream interpretation.
All right, let's move on because this is where everything starts to change. People began to pivot. The source of dreams slowly shifted from the heavens to the human mind itself.
So, over many, many centuries, thinkers started looking for internal explanations for things, and that long, slow shift pretty much culminates with psychologists like Sigmund Freud. For Freud, dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. They were the symbolic language of our own hidden desires. And just like that, the whole game changed.
And that brings us to the next great leap. Because with modern technology, we can now look directly inside the sleeping brain. We can actually see how dreams are made.
So back in 1977, a really groundbreaking theory came along that basically proposed that dreams aren't messages at all. Not from gods, not from our subconscious. Instead, they're just our brain's best effort to make a story out of completely chaotic and random neural firings. You can think of it like this. During REM sleep, this primitive part of your brain, the brainstem, just starts firing off all these random electrical signals. That's the activation. Then, the higher part of your brain, the cortex, gets hit with all this noise. And since its job is to make sense of the world, it tries its best to weave those random signals into some kind of story. That's the synthesis. It's like your brain is being shown a bunch of random, disconnected film clips and is trying to create a cohesive movie plot on the fly.
Now, what's really interesting here is this AIM model. It shows that brain activation is super high in both waking and dreaming. But look at the middle row, input/output. When we're dreaming, our brain actively shuts off its connection to the outside world. It's totally gated. It's pretty amazing, really.
But okay, that brings us to the really big question, right? If dreams are just a byproduct of random brain activity, do they actually serve any real purpose?
Well, one leading theory today, it's called Next Up, argues that dreams are far from meaningless. In fact, they might be a vital part of how we learn and adapt.
So this theory suggests that when we dream, our brains are exploring these really weak or unexpected connections between memories. That's why our dreams are so bizarre. They're mashing together things that don't normally fit. And by creating a story, a narrative, the brain can kind of test out these new creative links. And your emotional response in the dream, that tells the brain whether that connection might be useful. And get this, animal studies even show rats dreaming of new maze routes and birds rehearsing their songs in their sleep.
Okay, but hold on, because there's another fascinating theory, and this one proposes a more defensive role for dreaming.
So this brings us to a really cool scientific debate. Are dreams a sophisticated tool for learning, or are they just a clever way for the brain to keep its visual hardware from being rewired overnight? See, the defensive activation theory points out that for 8 hours a night, our visual cortex is getting no input. And in the brain, it's use it or lose it. So this theory suggests dreaming exists just to stimulate the visual cortex to defend it from being taken over by our other senses. The dream we experience is just a side effect.
And this is just brilliant, because it brings us right back to where we started. The very strangeness of our dreams, the thing that the ancients saw as a message from the gods, might just be the secret to their modern scientific purpose. The weirdness isn't a bug, it's a feature. So, the next time you wake up from some crazy dream, don't just ask yourself what it meant. Maybe ask, what new connection was my brain trying to build?